Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast.
I'm so excited to share this.
Okay.
Murphy is difficult to get to watch shows with, but
Because
he doesn't like to sit and watch TV. He's
Okay.
more
He's a doer.
successful type, person in his
You
free
mean
time. He likes to better himself.
Workaholic, is that what you mean? Not always. I do enjoy to, if it's a show that we can enjoy together, yeah.
But
I don't ever sit down and watch anything
no,
just me.
given free time, you just play music.
Yes.
And, you just kind of sit around and chillax, which is
That's right.
awesome. There's no wrong way to spend your free time. If I have free time, I will binge something. So, whenever we binge something together, it's usually something I have found.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to a recommendation that came into murphysamandjodi.com, we started binging this docuseries called Vegas, the story of Sin City. It was an original, and we didn't know this until we started watching it. It was a CNN-produced docuseries. And one episode is about 40 minutes, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Man, after the first episode, I knew he was going to be hooked because
Yeah, it's
Brat Pack and all that.
It's well done. Well, it just goes back to the beginning. Have you seen this yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of
yeah.
it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I am
Really
really.
4 of them, right?
We're not all the way through them yet, so I don't
there's
actually
several
know.
seasons.
Oh.
I feel like there's 5 seasons or something.
Oh.
I think they're going to bring it all the way up to modern day.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, Sam already saw it all,
Okay.
But I'm sure you would agree, it's a great documentary.
Oh, yeah, it's really cool.
It's very well done. If you
Yeah.
really want to know the history of Las Vegas and how it actually did get started by the mob and it had its roots there. And
I was like, wait, they're going to talk about Bugsy Siegel, and sure enough, there was Bugsy. Bugsy was one of my favorite ever movies in the 90s. It's so well done. Warren Beatty and Annette Bening. And it's the story of him. Of course, it's a romanticized story about the love story of those two, but still. Yeah, they only stayed a little bit on Bugsy in this thing, but as soon as it started doing with the entertainment, like the Brat Pack and Liberace and all of that.
The Rat Pack.
Oh, what did I say?
The Brat Pack was the
It
80s,
really
yeah.
does come up to the 80s.
I'm sorry, the Rat Pack and like Liberace and Tom Jones
Oh,
and Elvis.
Liberace part was
Oh
amazing.
my gosh.
What is wild about watching it, and if you don't even really have to be a fan of Vegas to actually appreciate the story, is to see how everything was trendy. Is it something would be hot and then it would get old, and then it would be replaced by the new thing, and then that would get old, and it's the Rat Pack thing. It's kind of had a renaissance of cool over the years, but it's hard to think of that as being something that was played out and done. And then it was done by the time. And Vegas went through a lull until Tom Jones came along and they started with it. And of course, Elvis really was the one who completely, created a resurgence in Vegas in the 70s.
That whole that part of it, they have to change so often. They have to really reinvent themselves so often, and I'm sure they do today still. That has been an education for me in this because I never thought of it from that perspective I think of it as from my perspective, which is a tourist, and I really like going.
Yeah.
But I've never thought of it from a business model perspective until watching this. It's like, oh, they have to reinvent themselves all the time because what the public wants and will spend money on changes with the times. And so it's interesting. That part's interesting.
Well, I also didn't realize that Howard Hughes was really the first one to kind of come in there and
I didn't know
corporatize.
I didn't know he had owned all those
Right.
casinos.
Yeah. And that was really sort of a turning point from the mob just kind of running things ad hoc to a very sophisticated business model for the Vegas casinos. But them trying to outdo themselves today, I mean, it's literally blowing up the hotels on sites that have been blown up before, and building something even bigger and more flashy.
The Mirage is about to be torn down in July.
Yeah.
I've
To me,
been
that
to
was
that
one
hotel.
of the new bigger ones. And
It
now
was
it's
new
starting-
in the 90s.
Yeah.
And honestly, the newer, biggest ones are since the time I've been there, which I was there a year ago with a girlfriend. Aria. Those are the really big ones now, and those are the most modern, and they are unbelievable. They do keep outdoing themselves, but it's so interesting. It's even more interesting than I thought it would be, Murph. But I will say this. After a while, because it's a documentary that was originally, I guess, meant for network television, it has those places where you can see this is where they went to commercial.
Yes.
And after a while, I can't deal with that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need a
Oh,
break.
really?
I need a break and watch something else, you know?
The first time I get to those, I think, oh, good, commercial. Oh, wait, that's right. It's streaming. Sit down.
Yeah.
So was the Rat Pack really your favorite part of it so far, Murph? Have you thought about that?
No, I mean, I've learned a lot. I thought that I knew everything that there was to know about Vegas, but no, I mean the story of Liberace and how he really just completely carved a niche for himself and was really brilliantly focused on what he knew would work. And there were no playbooks at that time.
Yeah.
You know, all these artists were doing their own thing, creating the sort of excitement and energy and the allure to the casinos.
The one thing I found interesting, it was like, oh, really? I didn't know they went to that extent. Was the dancers? They talked to a couple dancers. Showgirls, yeah. And one of them's like, yeah, they hired me away from Moulin Rouge in Paris.
Right.
It's like, wow. Because I always thought, oh, you just hire whoever's around. They actually went all the way over there to get, pros,
I was so interested to learn that everyone in Vegas who was speaking on this documentary said that the movie from the 90s, Casino, was very close to reality, especially when the mob was running things. And that was also another interesting, I'm not trying to give too much away if you haven't watched it yet, but it was super interesting when corporate came in and took over, that they seemed to be making so much more money because they weren't skimming.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, pause that. I need to laugh for a second.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I can't wait to watch more and learn more. And honestly, what I'm looking forward to is this. There was a time, speaking of them having to reinvent themselves as a city, as one of the most unique tourist places in the world. There was a time when artists would it seemed cheesy to them to go play Vegas. And then Celine did it, and look at it today. Look at the Strip today. You're talking Keith Urban, you're talking Usher, you're talking Aerosmith and Katy Perry, and you name it. You know, if you're hot today and you want to tour without the travel, you go to Vegas and you play it.
There was a point when, people would say, yeah, I'm going to Vegas this weekend, and go, why? It's like, that's has-been city. But it's like, after watching this documentary, I see why.
Oh, gosh.
That certain time periods, it's like, yeah, it was kind of like.
Well, it appeals to the older crowd. The older crowd has been working and saving money or whatever, and they've got the ability to go take the trips and those kind of things. So it makes sense to me. But it's almost like each phase, they got very close to kind of like, being totally stale before the next thing came along.
The next big thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
But I never thought about that either, that, rock bands in the 60s, they weren't going to go to Vegas.
Because they thought that wasn't them, their image. Exactly. It's just super interesting. And as somebody who, I've been there, I think more than both of you. I think you've been there on some business without me before, Murph. And we've been together a few times, and I've been with girlfriends a few times. I can only do Vegas for a couple of days, 3 really at the most, and then I'm just worn out because it's overwhelming. It's overstimulating. And I'm not one of those girls that just stays at the spa all day. Maybe I should try that. But
well, the last time you and I went together, it was 112 all day.
It was.
Wow.
But what I was going to say is, you can show up without a plan and still find 100 things to do. That's what's one of my favorite things that we did, Murphy, was the night we arrived. We had not scheduled anything because we didn't. One of our trips, we didn't schedule anything because we thought, what if we're tired? What if we're late? Blah, blah, blah. We get there. We were plenty of time. The sun was still out. And you're like, well, let's see what shows are happening. And we started looking around. And that's where we saw the Beatles Love Show at the Mirage. And we were like, this was the greatest show.
Yeah.
Now, probably because it was impromptu, we didn't expect it. It was fantastic. And it was the beginning of a trip, which always has a nice high to it, if you will. But you can find a ticket to a show sort of last minute, usually in Vegas, and see a show anytime.
Yeah.
That. So you don't have to show up with a major plan.
Well, and as you're walking down the Strip, they're going to try to recruit you into every casino with the coupons for meals and the free dinner and this, that, and the other.
Coupons for other things, too.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Anyway, I'm enjoying it. So I just want to say thanks for the recommendation. It's something that we are watching. Guess what? I also watched by myself the other night because in anticipation of Eddie Murphy and the Axel Foley movie, which is Beverly Hills Cop 4, that's coming in July on Netflix. I watched the original Beverly Hills Cop the other evening. you were working, you were gone, Murph, and I just let it play. You forget that movie was made in the 80s. It was a little slower than you remember.
Yeah.
Older movies are a little slow. They take a little bit longer to tell the story than we do
odd,
now.
Isn't it?
It is.
It was fine when we saw it, but nowadays, I guess we're used to so much bombarding us so quickly that...
Right. Our attention spans are different, I think. It's attention span.
Yeah. We didn't have as much to focus on.
He was fantastic, though. It was funny.
Yeah.
But I remember the second one being better, even funnier. And I can't find the second one. I'm looking for it in anticipation of Beverly Hills Cop 4 called Axel Foley on Netflix in July.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.